Also, I recommend security jobs through any company, whether you're talking about Allied Universal, a very renowned company, reputable for their work in security, top of the line. This is corporate security that they do. For those of you who haven't heard of them, there's another that I came to know being here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for the past 3 years, um, studying law school online via Coursera and EDX. There's St. Moritz, and these are security companies that uh, they patrol parameters. Um, let's say public libraries, colleges, stores. Sometimes you see 3 or 4 of them. Sometimes you see more, whatever they need their guys for. Um, so let's get into it. As I usually begin, greetings and salutations. This is Chief Security Officer Don Cornelio of American Muscle Security LLC in conjunction with Stackbooks Foundation LLC in conjunction with Parent Group Confidential LLC. Salute to everybody that's with us during Operation We're Forged. This is Operation Meshach, and Abednego, and I am your host, is Donnie the Guard. Badge number 11516464472. Bodyguard, whistleblower, watchdog, search party coordinator, means special police. I did say police. It is currently January the 14th, 2026, and we are in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Carnegie Public Library downtown on the second floor. This is my first time teaching on school. I haven't taught previously any classes whatsoever, let alone this refresher course. Just for a heads up, this refresher course, Think Like a Cop, is not going to give you the skills that it takes to be a law enforcement officer of any sort. It's not going to give you the skills to be a security guard. It's not going to give you the know-how to be a lawyer or the know-how to work in government in any form or fashion. What it is going to do is give you a little visual of what my experience was like working for University Police of Penn State for 4 months from 2004 to 2005. I started in October and I ended in February, I believe, something like that. And so basically, it's also going to give you a little bit of insight on what happens after that. Prior to me coming to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania 3 years ago, I had no idea that I was going to be studying forensic science. I had no idea I was going to be working in forensic science as an independent contractor and a forensics consultant. Um, just the most that you could do with a certificate from Coursera, and actually more than one. But bear in mind, it's not just a certificate that empowers you to do these things. You want the know-how, the skills, definitely the rapport, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to be building ties in your community if you're going to explore any of these avenues, whether it is working for a company or starting your own or doing a little bit of both. So I was sitting on my couch one day in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and this was some years ago. It was like 2021, so 4 years ago. My lease was about to be up. It was going on 2002. My lease was actually up in February 2002. So around like, let's say October, November-ish, I started going to school online. You know, I was wondering, what can I do with my time? Prior to that, I was landscaping all throughout Lawrence County, Mercer County area, and I was landscaping, mowing lawns, doing hedge trimming, all sorts of tree removal services with a couple guys. And I started getting into siding, painting, just random stuff. And it started getting cold, so I had to go back to the drawing board and figure out what I was going to do as far as income. And I decided to take a break, being that I do have the ability to take a break because I have other sources of income and focus on other things such as building myself up. Um, so I decided to go to school. And I was thinking to myself, what can I what can I go to school for? Back when I was going to school at Penn State, I started officially in 2005 at the main campus. I had an academic withdrawal and an academic renewal because my grades were bad. So there isn't really no record of me going to school there outside of recently when I took a course on Coursera at Penn State through Coursera. So there is also, although, record of me working for the university at University Place at Penn State. If you were an employer and I applied for a job, this is the only way you would know. And I put on an application. Let's say I want to work at McDonald's. What are some of my jobs that I had in the past? References. I put Penn State and I put auxiliary officer and human resources number. They could call up there and find out and verify, and they would say, yes, this gentleman was indeed auxiliary officer for Penn State University Police in 2004 to 2005. Now, you know, being that I've struggled with mental health in the past, and I'm not the only one, and this is a good thing that a lot of this is coming out on social media. A lot of people are talking about mental health and hip hop, and just in all sorts of people's platforms. Um, so I want to share a little bit about it. Psychology has never been really my strength. You know, I've mostly been a straightforward guy, and not that when you're good at psychology or you have a good grasp on psychology, you're the opposite of straightforward, but you find a balance and you learn to observe more. And I've tend to been an analytical thinker, but to observe and to speak on what I observe on is not a good grip on psychology when I'm speaking to an audience that's not catering to my best needs, at heart. So let's say, not necessarily I'm sleeping with the enemy, but let's say there's snakes on a plane, or there's people that are not to be trusted, deceptive people, people that are aggressive, people that are looking for somebody's downfall. And I'm riding on a plane, or I'm not going to sit next to them and start telling them my life story unless I suck at psychology. So I wanted to take psychology as a major because I knew people that were actually in the profession, besides people that were my clinicians, people that I went to school with, that did very well, and they ended up becoming teachers and practicing law and becoming working in public health services and becoming therapists and all sorts. And there was always somebody that told me, you could do whatever you put your mind to, as long as you have one foot in front of the other, and you always keep up with your responsibilities. You know what you have to do to keep your nose clean and keep your head clairvoyant. So your mind right. Just do it. So, but you can do psychology. There's somebody that we she compared this me to, and they struggle with mental health their whole life, and now they work as a clinician and as a therapist and helping other people who need mental health assistance, guidance, advice. But so you don't want to be the weakest link. You don't want to be the diary of a wimpy kid. You don't want to be the nerd. You don't want to be the nice guy that finishes last, or the person that gets robbed. you know, in any form or fashion, in your neighborhood, in a contract, when you sign a record deal, et cetera, et cetera. So I said, let me just make my strength my weakness and try and take on a course that will be the last thing that I would ever take. So I started taking it. Psychology became my major. And I was like, you know what? Let me just do criminology. So I started studying, etc. I came to Pittsburgh, etc. Long story short, prior to me coming here, I was explaining to somebody. I was like, "Hey, look, you can come by the studio all you want." This unruly person that I barely knew, but I trusted them to come into my house and record music. And I said, "Hey, but I'm going to school to study law, so I'm not going to be the same guy. I'm not going to be doing the same things that I used to be doing. I'm going to tighten up, and that's it. So I'm going to quit smoking, whatever. You know what I mean? You're welcome to be a stoner, but do it on your own time. Just don't bring none of that to my recording studio, et cetera, et cetera." And he tried to pull out a knife on me and stab me. So I told him, I was like, look, you got to go. I took him to his house and I said, before he got out of the car, this is the last time you're ever going to see me again, because the next time you see me, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be a cop, because that made me turn from just a nice guy. Like when you see the movie Spider-Man, or when you watch Batman, or any movie with a superhero, there's always the one driving force, that motivator, whether it's Aunt May for Spider-Man or Batman's parents whenever the Joker killed them, that drove him to want to fight crime. That was the line. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't want to ever be in a position like that ever again, where somebody pulls a knife on me and I feel like a victim and not a vindicator. Okay. So, um, but let's talk about Think Like a Cop, and let's talk about how it all began. Um, Go back, rewind a little bit prior to uh, me living in that apartment when that occurrence happened that scared the crap out of me. Bear with me. I'm new to all this live stuff, so I'm trying to make sure that I don't use any profanity. So I can be respectful to the students that are watching. Um, there was a guy who gave me the opportunity to work for him, and I found out that he also was an editor. And I wrote a book called Think Like a Cop, and it basically was about my experiences at Penn State, and also what happened after, and what caused me to want to actually consider doing it all over again, despite that one little occurrence. And I have it right here on the screen, and I'm gonna recite a little bit of it for you. You can find it on Word Live. You can find it on YouTube. Just look, Think Like a Cop by Aarao Cornelio Jr. And Donnie Corleone. That's my doing business as. It's my it's a name that I use fictitiously. Whether I'm doing vlogs or I'm doing contract work. But let's get into Think Like a Cop, and let's get a little bit of backstory of how this all started. Um, Grammarly. For those of you who are writers, I definitely recommend Grammarly, and I definitely recommend writing because it's a beautiful thing. It's therapeutic, and it it, it helps in so many ways when you're trying to express yourself to whoever your audience is for whatever you do. So think like a cop. I had barely any knowledge of how to conduct police work outside of playing cops and robbers as a kid with my best friend Johnny in my backyard after school. I'm not sure what captured my attention more, the $10.50 an hour promotion of the job on campus, on the campus lawn, or the challenge of trying something new that excited me. I was 24 years old in a college town, and all I had been known to do prior to accepting my job as an auxiliary officer is smoking blunts and making music that I would shop around town to all the local stoners and college kids. Although this was only a temporary job I had for about 4 months, it was a job that had a tremendous effect on my life, one that will be a lasting memory for the rest of my life, etc. I was living with my lady Lay. We called her Lieutenant, from Brooklyn. She was attending school in PA. She was going to school at Penn State. But in my book, I kind of leave it blank, for your mind to wander. So, for integrity's sake, okay. But you figure it out. So, let me see. Not far from where I grew up, so I linked up with her because I never really experienced the true college love before. Plus, I was itching to get out of my parents' house after I did not get after things ended up not working in New York City. I ended up back in the drawing board. It was hard to see how I was not terminated sooner because it was almost like I was leading a double life. I was smoking weed at my apartment in the afternoons when I came home from work, recording songs in my studio. And in the day, I was on campus patrolling the university, making sure the students were not doing the same things that I was doing in my apartment after work. Now, let me clarify first off what an auxiliary officer is. Okay, and the reason why I wanted to explain this is because there's a lot of people who, when you hear the word auxiliary, you think wire, which is true. Auxiliary does deal in wires when you're talking about engineering, but an auxiliary officer is not somebody that wears a wire. That's an informant. That's a police informant, not an auxiliary officer. So a police informant is somebody that the police department pays, whether you go to them or they come seek you out, to wear a wire and not be an undercover cop, but just be an undercover, what's known as and I don't know what the word is, what the term is, but it's an informant. You're not like an agent. You're basically you're an agent to their success, but you're not like a paid agent, right? Auxiliary, when you go to the military, or when you go to police academy, or when you study in law school, you'll find out that all auxiliary means is your walkie-talkie. If you are going to be either a beat cop or infantry cop, okay? If you're infantry, you're infiltrating. They see you. You're not. There's two different ways to infiltrate. You can infiltrate undercover. You can infiltrate by sending in people that are informants to find out. But eventually, somebody's got to come knocking on the door with a warrant, or whatever it is, to ask you questions and to bring you into interrogation. And they're coming in a uniform, so you know who they are. As when I came in a uniform, and you knew who I was. So an informant, you don't see them wear a uniform or anything that says police on it. They're not gonna. It's not gonna. There's not gonna be a sign that says police. You don't work for the police. You don't get a paycheck from the police. So you are not the police in any form or fashion. When you work for university police of any college or any entity of the government that deals in law enforcement, specifically in police work, if your paycheck says police, you are the police. You're an extension of the police. You're a police officer, but for short, people call you the police. I was a police officer. For short, they called me the police. Even when I didn't know, I had no idea I was the police because I was that ignorant. I was an auxiliary officer to my knowledge, but I had no idea that auxiliary officer was short for auxiliary police officer. But nevertheless, as an auxiliary police officer or an auxiliary officer who is only known as auxiliary because of My main job is to observe, alert, and detect. Okay? That's not what an informant does. An informant observes and then does whatever they're told. They observe and report. They don't alert and they don't know how to detect. They observe and they report from what they see with minuscule skills that they didn't learn in police academy, that they didn't learn in school, and that they didn't learn on the job training in your probation period as I did. Okay? So again, two different kinds of auxiliary. You have an auxiliary that's a wire that you wear when you're an informant, or what the streets know as a rat or a snitch. And then you have the auxiliary that you carry outside your uniform. So you're a uniformed worker for society, public. You're doing public relations in the form of governments. So a security guard or a university auxiliary police officer, as I was, they're not quite the same, but they're very close because security guards, let's say for Allied Universal, St. Moritz, or anything like that, you carry a walkie talkie. Your job is your walkie talkie. Your job is not to carry a firearm. Your job is not to carry a baton. Your job is not to carry anything except your walkie talkie. That's all. That's how you report to your upline commanders and superiors. That's how you report to your, or you transmit or relay information to your partners who are your fellow coworkers that are security guards, or if you're university police as I was, your fellow cadets who are auxiliary police officers. So my partners, not in the military, but it's still the same thing. Cadet, it's the lowest rank that you can go. Auxiliary is the lowest rank that you can go in police. Okay, anything lower than that is security, and that is not at all police. Okay, so some people get it confused because there's people who are security officers or chief security officers. For example, I'm a chief security officer for my company, American Muscle Security. That's in one hand. But on another note, I'm an independent contractor and a forensics consultant because I don't have the high enough education to be the kind of forensics that I'm going to be once I graduate with a bachelor's degree. Okay, so but I could say forensics officer because I'm certified in forensics and I have enough. I have the licenses and I have all the requirements and I have the education. Okay, but you got to be careful because you're treading a thin line. You never want to say you're a law enforcement officer. I am not a law enforcement officer. I'm a forensic scientist. I am a forensics officer and a forensic consultant, not a law enforcement officer. So it's very tricky. But you want to be sure, you want to ask an actual law enforcement officer that works at a department, not for themselves. You want to ask somebody who's a professor who works for a college, not at a teach out. You want to go to the highest degree of expertise whenever you want to get the most potent knowledge and the absolute sure shot answer and not be guessing. But I will tell you beyond the shadow of a doubt, an auxiliary police officer is a form of a police officer. That's the lowest rank you can go. And once you're a police officer, you're always a police officer. Okay. You may not work and earn the check anymore, but it's like being a man apart. This is what you are to the community, whether they say it or not. But so we got that part down. Okay. Now what do we call it? We call this your radio. You don't say, your superior is not going to say to you, so do you have your auxiliary on you today? No, they're not going to say that. They already explained it once. Your radio. This is your radio. When I say radio, I'm talking about your walkie-talkie. When you want to ask me a question about your walkie-talkie, you say radio. You don't say, my walkie-talkie is not working today, sir. You're fired immediately. When you work for the police, nobody has time for anything ridiculous like a question like that. You might get a warning, but this is the police. This is not security work. If you want to do security work for a security company, and when you're working for the police, and this is something that I did not know, and this is something that you should be aware of. Even if you work for a university police of a college, regardless where you work at, it is as serious as working for a police department in any city, state, country, whatever. Because whatever university police force that you work for, or department that you work for, department, force, same thing. Okay? They are a force, which means they work under the local city police department. So I worked underneath the parent group when you're talking about the corporate office of the government institute, which is University Police of Penn State. As high as you can go as state college police, they oversee university police, which is the college police. And the college police oversaw somebody like me who just reported basically what I saw that was done unlawfully. And, you know, then they come in and they handle the expert work, and they teach us how to do that. And you can stick around and go to police academy, or you can stick around and develop and choose a major that's conducive, which is criminology, to becoming a law enforcement officer. But eventually you're going to have to go to police academy. You're going to have to take your Act 120. You're going to have to do all this sort of stuff. Even if you're going to be a forensics officer, if you're going to work in a police department, it's just the way that it goes. If you work for yourself, there's maybe one or two different rules, but it's basically all the same because you're operating within the institute of the law. Okay, so we got that. Good. Um, there's a couple of books that the past year or so on Instagram and YouTube and many different platforms. I've been holding discussion groups on thinking like a cop, not thinking like a cop from an expert's position, but thinking like a cop from a novice's position. For those of you who don't know how to spell novice, Novice. Okay, novice, beginner. Anything less than that is newbie. Newbie, you're newbie for day one. Day two, day three, you're still newbie, you're fired. This is police work. And again, I'm going to tell you, if you are associated with the police or wear anything that says police, you're not going to know it, but somebody that hates them very, very badly is going to let you know that one day, very physically, very aggressively, and it's very detrimental to your health that you know why you want to get into this business or why you shouldn't at all. But so novice, from a novice standpoint, I explained in my discussions, what it was like for me experimenting and starting my own company, my own lab for forensic science, and it's a remote lab. Um, and also, just again, some of the stuff that I'm going to explain here and that you've heard me explain thus far. Okay. Now, there's people that have lasted longer than 4 months. There's people that lasted a year, 2 years, 3 years. After that, they went to police academy and they decided to become law enforcement officers. Some of them went to the military. Some of them didn't. Some of them graduated police academy. Some of them are officers today. Some of them quit their job. But 4 months is a good stretch for somebody who's definitely not a newbie. When you go 4 months, you're not a newbie, but you're not much more than a novice. To be much more than a novice, you're going to have to get at least an associate's degree, and you're going to have a lot of rapport from everybody in town that works in law enforcement, etc. Okay? There's not much room for error. You can make mistakes. Law enforcement officers, security guards, auxiliary officers, even independent contractors have been in trouble with the law, gone to jail, have been hospitalized. have committed crimes as you see on TV, got the help that they needed, got into rehabilitation, and got right back to work. Okay? It's not an easy process. It's not a process that you should rush, but it is something that you may want to consider if this is really what you're meant to be doing in life. Okay? So these books, what are we looking at here? Virtually the same 3 or 4 books that I usually uh, look at. We have first off the police exam prep book. This book is going to prep you for taking your Act 120. It's going to prep you for police academy. It's going to prep you for anything that deals with being a police officer. This is not for security. This is beyond. The employee performance handbook. Okay. Now, first off, this is not a NOLO book, but it's an exam book. When you want to get into any career, you're going to want to look at the exam books, whether it's nursing, whether it's any form of masonry, or whether it's law enforcement. So you look at the exam books, you study it hard. You get a tutor, and you don't go at anything by yourself unless you're just waiting for people to chug along. These NOLO books are deal a lot, mostly in law. Okay, so the Employee Performance Handbook. What does it say? Smart strategies for coaching employees. Why do I have this? Because I have an LLC. What is my LLC? I have three. One, American Muscle Security LLC. This is a LLC, which is a security company for any purpose that I'm going to need security for. One of my passions and my hobbies, you're going to find when you go online and you Google my name, is rap. I rap. I do DJing. I break dance, and I do a lot in the entertainment business. My end goal after this stuff is all through is to be an IP lawyer and read contracts for people who need help reading contracts so they don't get a bogus deal and they don't have a crummy music career. Also, to advise them in how to carry themselves as far as public relations, what kind of protection they're going to need as far as security. Because whether you're in the entertainment business, any career where you're dealing with that much money, you're going to need protection. And the best people that can protect your security guards that have gone to school for it, have worked in it for years, maybe former police officers, maybe former military. You're going to want to go with the best that you can get, and that deals with experience. So, I have no problem hiring security to protect me whenever I'm on stage. I'm not going to hire some buddies that can get their hands on a firearm or some military gear. You gotta hire experts that are trained, but also licensed people who have not made that many mistakes in their career, let alone at all. So you got to be reputable. So I'm going to hire people for my company, and until then, it's just me. These are all my LLCs are all think groups. Until I hire the first person, I wouldn't even call them a business. I would call them a test flight. Okay. But this is important, the employee performance handbook, because so often people start businesses just like you start a band, you start a rap group, you start a company. So many people start businesses, and it's good for a while, and then the members, one guy feels like he's not getting paid enough, or one guy feels like he's getting too much attention. The girls are looking at him. Why doesn't he get to wear a vest? Why does he only have a walkie-talkie? Why doesn't he have a baton or a mace or a taser plus like everybody else? And he's gonna try and reach for something, and then you get a quarrel, and then you got to call in the law enforcement, and they got to figure out who it started the whole thing, and then it just all looks bad. Like these guys are a bunch of goofies. It's always better to look like one goofball than a whole group of goofballs. If you watch Police Academy, the movie, um, you can see. You watch any of those movies, Hills Cop, um, any of the Ernest. Hey, my name is Ernest. those ones. Ernest goes to camp. Ernest does this. Just watch the movie Police Academy, and you'll see what I mean by people like not knowing how to drill right, running into each other. Turning the one guy's turning the baton this way, the other guy's turning the baton that way. One guy's turning it this way, the other guy's turning it that way. The other guy drops it on the ground, and it goes off. You know, it, People are doing guiding traffic like they're dancing. So it's just what is this? Is this a circus? And then somebody gets a call, and then all of a sudden your LLC gets canceled. So that's the last thing that I want for American Muscle Security LLC, Parent Group Confidential LLC, or my other LLC, which is Stack Books Foundation. And I advise you the same. So a structure, a game plan. Get a game plan together if this is what you're seeking out to do. This is the reason why I read this book, is because of leadership skills. To learn leadership skills, it's not something that you're born with. It's not something that's going to magically appear in your pocket or in your skull one day when you say, "Wow, by Jove, I've got it. I think, therefore I am. I am a 5-star general, and I could lead somebody into, victory," when you haven't been engaged in any form of battle, let alone like played Go Fish in your whole life. Okay, war is not your thing, combat is not your thing, infantry is not your thing, information systems technology is not your thing. Okay, so that's not a good thing. So get a game plan. This is and this is even for somebody who wants to start a band. You want to be a leader of your band. Employee performance handbooks. How can I get my band members to perform um, productively every fiscal year? We need, we're racking in whatever our projection sheet say we're supposed to be racking in. We're pulling in overhead. We're not underneath the bar of what we should be striving for. We This is our quota. We already paid our bills. We have extra and then some. We got quote unquote money to blow. All right. So when you're dealing with security, like I am, or forensic science, or whatsoever I do, um, you don't want any problems with the law. You don't want any people saying that you did a bad job doing security at the concert, or the graduation, or the wedding, or whatever you're doing. Forensic science. Let's say I'm an independent contractor for a detective who hires me, who takes me on as a paid intern. Um, I don't want him to say, or her to say, this is sloppy work. This is an autopsy you're looking at. This is an operation. Okay. So no, that's not at all how it could happen. I'm not even a forensics officer, and you're supposed to be telling me. I'm telling you, you're fired because you're telling me that a magical bullet hit him here, but the magical bullet had to hit him there, based on gravity alone. So you know, handbook. These are fail. These are tested uh, facts. They've been tested, tried, law enforcement officer tested, all legal advisors and legal aids approved. NOLO is reputable. Okay, this is as impeccable as it gets. So whenever I'm reading in here, if I treat my coworkers or the people that work for me this way, this is supposed to happen. If I do it this way, then that's what I expect to happen. Any other way, I did it wrong. So if it's in the book, it's going to work unless I put it in there myself. All right. So dealing with problems with employees, same thing. This is the game plan. This is the playbook. This is what you strive for. You read this book, I read this book and I develop my own game plan based off of this. But then I read this book and I see, okay, what are some of the things where it could go wrong? So when it goes wrong, this book says to do, whatever I need to do to pull it all together. Okay, but this goes into detail of some of the problems that you're going to come into play. All right. The essential guide work of handling workplace harassment and discrimination. This is going to basically talk about, basically, am I being too much? Am I being overbearing? Am I being inappropriate? Is somebody being inappropriate with me? What do I do in those situations? What is the exact law when it comes to that? So this doesn't only deal with harassment and discrimination from your employees, it also deals with it from the employers, but also from the general public. Okay. Whenever I was, and I'm going to show you on here, learning to walk the thin line that I walking in public with my uniform on and all of my gadgets. I was harassed constantly by people who don't like the police. There were some people who were nice to me who thought what I was doing was a good service to the community, and I appreciate them. But it's not easy having something that everybody wants, which is a vest and cool gadgets that make you look like you have sex appeal or something, and you gotta stay focused. And there was a lot of times where I lost my focus and I didn't keep my cool, but also I didn't practice good procedures when it comes to conducting the kind of business that I should have been practicing, let alone any business at all. Let's take a quick peek, real quick, into a day in the life of what it was like for me um, as my own security guard who was studying forensics at the time, who wasn't yet a forensics officer, well, a forensics consultant, um, and some of the things that changed throughout the process. Let's see a little bit. I encourage you to go onto my YouTube channel. It is youtube.com/angry cop TV. The name of it is just Anger Management TV. And, I thought of that name because I took a class, the understanding and managing the stresses of police work. And, you know, I just, we'll go into it real quick. We're going to see a little bit. So you can get an idea. Hey, maybe this is for me. Maybe this isn't. Um, First off, I have a lot of tattooing up on here. I have a lot of music on here. Um, but I also have stuff like this. Point, I had to have a talk with that commander and say, hey, this is what happened. I hope it's okay. Well, we've been doing this. This is our 11th year. So it's not my dream. I can't take any credit for it. I'm going to support my child and do what she wants to do to make the world a better place. But I'm appreciative, and it fills my heart that knowing that she cares about others. So I must have done something right. So I'm going to let her talk after me, but I do want to acknowledge we have Sergeant Chelsea Washington, my supervisor is here, and Officer Meg Blair. So this was something that's on my channel. It's called A Christmas Story by Aarao Cornelio Jr. You can look it up on the Real Prince Rao. It's just a little video that I made at a local church where the local police department came by and they gave away gifts to all the local people who attend church there and go to that warming shelter to get help as I did when I first came here. And, I thought it was very nice that they did. I commend them. And I think very highly of Pittsburgh Police Department. But that's just one thing real quick. My phone battery is beginning to die, so we're going to have to end this video here shortly. But I encourage you to check out some of my pages. LatinoLawStudent.wixsite.com/life roads. Let's see. LatinoLawStudent.wixsite.com/film the Pittsburgh. It's short for Film the Pittsburgh Police. Um, and you just you come on here and you get a little bit of an idea of my intentions and what I'm all about. And we're gonna get into things a little bit more on a later episode. I'm gonna end this one real quickly, how I usually start off my shows uh, in past times. Uh, by saying the correctional officer creed. I feel it's a great thing that for me and my group, my think group, my discussion group, to try and recite this, because if law enforcement didn't work out, I was thinking about being a correctional officer at a local jail, and I still am actually thinking about that. Um, but it's good morals when you read this. It's good morals to have for myself, and you know the group that studies together stays together. The law students that study together stay together. The LLC that develops their morals together, stays together. So this is some of the things that we're all going to say, not you as a class, but my group, once I develop my company, American Muscle Security LLC. All right, so let's go. Correctional Officers Creed. I solemnly swear to speak sparingly, to act, not to argue, to be in authority through personal presence, to correct without nagging, to speak with the calm voice of certainty, to see everything and to know what is significant and what not to notice, to be neither insensitive to distress nor so distracted by pity as to miss what elsewhere must be seen, to do neither that which is unkind nor self-indulgent in its misplaced charity, never to obey the impulse, the tongue lash, that silent insolence which in times past could receive the lash, to be both firm and fair, to know I cannot be fair simply by being firm, nor firm by simply by being fair, to support the reputation of associates and confront them without anger should they stand short of professional conduct, to reach for the knowledge of the continuing mysteries of human motivation, to think always, to think, to be dependable, first to my charges and my associates, thereafter to my duty as employee and citizen, to keep fit, to keep forever alert, to listen to what is meant as well as what is said with words and with silences, to expect respect from my charges and my superiors, yet never to abuse the one for abuses from the other, for 8 hours each working day, to be an example of the person I could be at all times, to acquiesce a notice on a sack, to cultivate patience under boredom and calm during confusion, to understand the why of every order that I take or give, to hold freedom among the highest values, though I deny it to those I guard, to deny it with dignity, that in my example they find no reason to lose their no dignity, to be prompt, to be honest with all who practice deceit, that they not find in me excuse for themselves, to privately face down my fear, that I not signal it, to privately cool my anger, that I not displace it on others, to hold in confidence what I see and hear, which by the telling could harm or humiliate to no good purpose, to keep my outside problems outside, to leave inside that which to stay inside, to do my duty. And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so listen, I love my job, my excellent job, my shiny golden blue. I love my job, my excellent job, my red, white, and my blue. All right, so listen, we're not going to say that every day in class. I'm not going to recite that every day in class. That's something that in your spare time I encourage you to look into if you're looking for a cool career to get into. And, how I usually end it. Um, don't wait for somebody to get the drop. Whenever you're walking at home late at night and you see stranger danger, don't forget to think like a cop.